Welcome to Capitol Preview, a weekly bipartisan discussion with Iowa legislators about the key issues facing our state. Brought to you by Mediacom.
Good morning and welcome to another segment of Capitol Preview. My name is Bill Peard and I'll be your host this morning. Our guest today on Capitol Preview is Speaker of the House Kraig Paulsen, Republican from Hiawatha. Mr. Speaker, thank you for being with us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. There's a proposal that's moving through the House that cuts Iowans' income taxes. Tell us a little bit about that plan.
Well, the plan itself, what it basically does is create a flat tax. It leaves the existing income tax code in same state that it is today, and then gives the taxpayer the option of using it if it's more advantageous, or the new flat tax, which the current one is proposed at 5%. It also eliminates income taxes on pensions. Social Security, of course, is already eliminated in Iowa. We did that several years ago. This is a conversation that obviously would be difficult to we have to do some more figuring with the money to figure out how to afford it this year. But this is an issue that Republicans said we would work on. We want to keep it out as part of the conversation, and kind of excited about the way this would work. It would obviously leave more money in Iowa pockets. It also would fix. We're told a lot by economic developers in the state that the optic of the way that Iowa's income tax works is not particularly good, and this would also help correct that.
Excellent, excellent. How is this plan different from the other tax cut proposals that have come before the House?
Well, this is it's another proposal. We'll see what the Senate wants to talk about or what their input would be. But we've put a couple different ones out there. 2011, we did an across-the-board cut where every taxpayer's income tax rate was cut 20%. In 2011, we did another modified flat tax style, similar to the one I just described. Difference was it actually was 4.5% and continued to tax some of the pension and some of those types of things. So we took that, modified it just a little bit for this proposal. Under this proposal, the truth is there's winners and losers, and there's no losers because nobody pays more than they are right now. But there's winners in every tax bracket. The other piece that I don't think I mentioned there that's important is we raised the filing threshold. So low-income Iowans actually would not have to file. I believe it's for single, your first $6,000, and then for a married couple, it would be your first $12,000 would not be taxed.
Okay, very good. Do Republicans have any other plans to help save the taxpayers' money in this session?
You know what? That's all we do, right? That's all we do.
Yeah.
So, a couple things. Two things really. One is, of course, the budget process. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the budget today. But we absolutely take our responsibility of stewardship on behalf of the taxpayer very serious. I go through the budget line by line every single time to the point where I think it almost gets tiring for a lot of people to have conversations with us sometimes, but that's what the taxpayers expect, and that's what we're going to do. The other thing we did a couple years ago, we created what was called the Taxpayer Trust Fund. Actually, that was 4 years ago we created that, and that takes money that comes into the state in excess of projections and sets it aside, and then the following year that's returned to the taxpayers of Iowa on their income tax forms. Then 2 years ago, we actually put the dollar amounts in there, so it's begun. As the viewers fill out their income tax, or most have probably completed them by now, that little taxpayer trust fund line item on your income tax form. That's what that is. That's a direct return of dollars that we received in excess of projections. So, yeah, I mean, and those are a couple examples of that, but that's what gets us up in the morning.
So there's been a lot of things that have happened this session already and a lot of things yet to come. We're about 2 months away from the session being over. And so how do you think the 2015 session is going? And kind of give us a little bit of a...
You know, I think it's there's not quite as much legislation as some other sessions. Historically, the General Assembly has put anywhere from 180 to 200 bills on the governor's desk. I mean, there's been some General Assemblies that have done much more than that in excess, not very many of them, but some have done as many as 500. But the last handful of years with this Republican majority in the House, a Democrat majority in the Senate, we put anywhere from about 140 bills a year. My expectation is this will probably be less than that just because of the times we're in, the budget is tight, and I don't know, this General Assembly just, they're doing very good work. I think we're doing very good work, but not necessarily as many bills as we've done in the past. I've never been one to judge the success or lack of success of a General Assembly by the quantity of bills. I guess we'll find out what we're remembered for, one of those specifically, when it's done.
What are some of the hot issues that are going to lie ahead with the legislature before it gavels out here?
Well, the one thing we have to do, and the thing that's unquestionably the most difficult, is the budget.
Yeah.
The Revenue Estimating Conference met again last week. They actually lowered the number from the December projection. So roughly, probably the easiest way to describe it is last year the general fund budget was about $7 billion. What they're telling us right now is that the ongoing revenue is going to be $7,180,000,000, so $7.18 billion. 180 million new dollars sounds like a lot, but the truth of the matter is, by the time you look at supplemental state aid, funding the education reform, funding the property tax reform and relief bill, and then with the continued increase of expenditures in Medicaid, a lot of it being driven by the federal government just forcing us into a position. The truth of the matter, those things right there add up to not quite, but almost double of the $180 million. So we've got a lot of work to do to figure that out, because House Republicans are, we're very committed to making sure we don't spend more in the general fund budget than we have in ongoing revenue.
You know, there's a lot of things have happened legislatively already, and a lot more things are going to happen in the next couple weeks because it's the second funnel. So why don't you kind of tell our viewers a little bit about what the second funnel is, or what the funnel is and what the second funnel will do?
Well, the funnels they're joint rules. One of the things we do in Iowa is we actually establish we have our House rules, and then we also have some joint rules between the House and the Senate agree to. One of those things that's included in the joint rules is we've agreed that if a bill hasn't moved so far at such and such a time, then it's no longer eligible for debate. The first funnel was a couple weeks ago. That's the one that says if a policy bill is not out of a committee, then it's no longer eligible to be placed on the debate calendar, debated on the floor of the Iowa House. The second funnel says that if it's a House file, then it has to be out of a Senate committee, or if it's a Senate file, it has to be out of a House committee to remain eligible for debate. They're just, they are exactly what they seem. They're self-imposed deadlines that help us wade through things, and if you can't get the support or can't figure it out in that time frame, may still be a meritorious subject matter, but maybe we should look at it next year. And it's a way to transition to the budget, which is exactly what's happening right now. Next week will be the end of the funnel, or at the end of the second funnel, and then kind of the policy conversation will begin to wane down. It'll continue, but it won't be as much, and the budget conversation will ramp up, and that'll start consuming more of our time. So it's sort of a transition period we're going through right now.
I think it's an excellent process, because I think, like you said, it kind of it keeps winnowing what the real bills are going to be. So
yeah, and Iowa's had this. This has been a rule now. I think it's been in place for about 2 or 3 decades, and like I say, I think it served the people of Iowa very well.
Absolutely. Tell us about what the Republican plans for education funding and cost containment measures are going to be.
Well, what we promised this year was really 3 things. One, we try to get supplemental state aid, which is the number that tells school districts how much they can spend. That we try to get that done early in the session. It was the first bill we passed off the floor. I'm disappointed we don't actually have it resolved with the Senate yet and on the governor's desk, but that's one of the pieces, is just simply the money. Another piece is to provide them flexibility within the dollars that they have and the way with which they can make decisions. We've passed now a couple bills out of the House that permit them to do that exact thing. One of them deals with a management levy and what you can use it for. Another one deals with PEPL funding. Anyway, without breaking into all that, it provides them some flexibility there. And then the other piece is when school districts and school board members and superintendents consistently tell us that they just, because of the process, they just assume they're going to end up having a 3 to 4% raise every year for their employees, including the teachers. That tells me, I mean, the rest of Iowa doesn't have that luxury of assuming a 3 to 4% pay raise every single year, sometimes more, sometimes less, but that's the assumption they build into their models. That's something also that needed to be addressed. So last week we passed a bill dealing with collective bargaining reforms as well. So like I said, kind of a three-pronged approach on addressing some of the issues facing our K-12 schools in the state.
Mr. Speaker, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I kind of want to come back to it a little bit. The biggest obstacles that you think are going to face the legislature going forward, and that already have, and how do you think you're going to overcome those obstacles?
That's kind of a big question.
Yeah, it is a big question.
I mean, again, the budget is just consuming everything right now. It's on everybody's mind because it's going to be so tight. There's a handful of other things we need to resolve. Unquestionably, we've got within the Health and Human Services arena, we've got the managed care proposal. I think that one has general support in the General Assembly. It's a proposal from the governor. It's one of the ways we're going to be able to find ways to deliver those services to Iowans that need them and do it in a more efficient fashion. At least that kind of seems to be the consensus that it's going to. Another one, of course, is the mental health institutes at Mount Pleasant and Clarinda. And the governor has moved towards transitioning those services to being delivered through other means. The General Assembly, I would say right now, still is having a conversation about that, and there's some folks that want to weigh in pretty serious about that. A couple things that primarily the conversations I'm having is how do we make sure that these Iowans that need these mental health services are getting the services they need, and then the other half of that equation is are we doing it in the most effective and efficient means possible, and then you kind of try to merge those together and come to a solution. That's one of the things out there. There's a Second Amendment bill that the local governments, in particular the sheriffs, I know are very interested in. It solves some problems there. And the sportsmen, Iowa Farms Coalition, the National Rifle Association are very interested in well. That's another one that I think will probably get some time here as we move forward. There's a host of different issues out there to work through. But again, the biggest one is going to be the budget, and we're transitioning into that here as we speak.
Yeah. So what do you hope this session, with all the things we've discussed this morning, Mr. Speaker, what do you hope this session will be remembered for?
I don't think it makes any difference what I hope it will be remembered for. I think it will be remembered for a difficult budget year and the year we increased the fuel tax. Those are the two things, and that's just the hard facts of the session and what I think it will be remembered for.
Yep. Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your time this morning. I think you do a great job. You got a really tough job to do, and I think you managed it well. I think people really need to go up there and spend a day or two seeing how their government works and seeing how efficient it does work. I mean, we are definitely a different thing than the federal government, the state government.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I will tell you, I'd encourage Iowans to show up. Iowa's General Assembly makes better decisions when Iowans are engaged. We, connect with us when we're back home and connect with us at your state capitol. It's just that absolutely helps us.
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker, and thank you. Thanks for sharing your ideas with us this morning. We'll be back more to talk about the issues facing Iowa and the Iowa legislature. So keep watching us here on Capitol Preview.